Hi, it's Polly with Get Busy Thriving, and I received an email from a woman who was explaining to me this back and forth she was doing with gaining weight and then dieting and kind of trying to get out of this cycle of binge eating and binging and purging, bulimia, all of this, and was struggling with it. And I could see how her mind over many years and decade even had gotten things so twisted around that she couldn't even kind of see the clarity of some of what she was doing and the way she was thinking. So what I want to share in this video is, I think, maybe a surprising approach to how to stop binge eating, because what I want to put forth is a lot of people who come to me and work with me is the mentality is I need to restrict. I need to diet, I need to lose weight, I don't want to get fat. And restriction is how I know how to go about that. And I think that's flawed. And so what I want to say is, don't think restrict, think addition. And that came to me from an interview that I did with a nutritionist one time, who said, a lot of my clients, they come to me and it's not so much that they need to cut back on calories, it's just that the calories that they're taking in are empty or void, or they haven't thought about, what nutrition that their body needs, and so they're just out of balance, right? And so a lot of times what happens with people who, like myself, I had bulimia for 20 years. Early on, a young woman's strategy to lose weight is, go on a diet, right? Get that guy or be popular or whatever. And unfortunately, we sit in this mindset that restriction is the path to that, and we go through endless diets. I can't tell you how many different strategies, and we start to restrict a type of food or a whole family of food, carbohydrates, fats, all these things. And what it leads to is this kind of never-ending cycle of our body not getting the nutrition that it needs, the nourishment that it needs in order to have energy and high functioning and mental capacity. Because when we actually deplete some of the fats that our brain needs, the brain doesn't work as well. And we wonder where our willpower goes. Well, hello. But I can share with you also that I find that a lot of clients that I work with, people with eating disorders, tend to be high achievers. And high achievers tend to have actually great willpower because they're used to delaying gratification, right? High achievers are like, work hard now, put effort in, do all these things so that you'll have the result, you'll have the reward, you'll get that thing that you want, that recognition, that achievement, reward, accomplishment, something like that. So it's not that they don't have willpower. Sometimes it's the mental capacity is diminished, but also there's a lot mental capacity is diminished because of the types of foods that they're feeding them. Let me finish that thought. But oftentimes it's not a lack of willpower, right? And I find that in my own journey and in studying a lot of women who've come to me, it's this cycle. It's restricted diet, and then the body goes into kind of feast or famine, and then it needs food, and then we go on this binge and then purge, and back and forth, and then we try diet strategy, this, eliminate that, or what have you. And over years we start to lose faith in ourselves. We start to lose faith in having this figured out, or we just have this imminent fear that if we don't restrict, or we don't cut back, or we don't listen to the newest fad of whatever intermittent fasting I'm hearing now, I'm like, that is going to go crazy in a binge eater's mind because intermittent fasting takes so much mental capacity and shutting down a lot of things in your innate body to avoid those signals from your body of starvation. So on another note, I just want to say that when I see that cycle kind of go round and round, and people find themselves in this dilemma, I'm gaining weight, but I need to lose weight, and and they only think of restriction. The first thing I want to remind you is think addition instead of restriction. So look at nourishment, right? And really where the cause lies in what's got you kind of locked into this kind of seeming prison or cage, in this cycle, this dilemma, how do I do this? I don't want to gain weight, but I don't want to diet. Logically I know I need to. Logically we tell ourselves we need less calories or restrict, but it's not always the case. So I encourage you to think addition. Think of nourishing your body. Women who come to me with, they haven't eaten carbs in years, or they do low fat or high protein, things are just kind of out of whack. So I just want you to question some assumptions, question some of the things that you maybe believe right now that it's just an illusion or something that you picked up along the way, but if it wasn't true, could set you free, right? And I have some notes here of things that, often when I see, like I said, high achievers, people with binge eating or bulimia, they're really good at willpower and so good at it. And even actually, they can have no willpower. Sometimes they'll just restrict a food altogether, like no, whatever, bread, no carbs, no fat, something like that, or a particular, category of food. And then they set up this rule. And then as a high achiever, it's like, oh no, that's my stance on that thing. And not necessarily taking into consideration what they're, how they're treating their body on that. Sometimes it's the factor of what you resist persists, like, oh, can't have that thing, and what are you doing? You're thinking about that thing that you can't have, that thing that, you want to have, but you can't have it, you're thinking about it, can't have it. Take care with that, right? So when we cut off entire categories of food or certain foods, our brain almost goes, what food? Especially sugary foods. The way that our brains are wired from long time ago, like cave woman days, is that anything that is highly caloric in a small amount, so think like sugary, high energy, like glucose type things in a small dose, the brain's going to remember that. I had this instance recently where don't keep a lot of those kind of foods in my house, and I happened to come upon a little piece of chocolate that I don't even remember how it got into the I think it was a Halloween candy or something like that. So it was like this lone piece of chocolate sitting in a drawer, and I happened to open up the drawer and saw it, and I was like, oh, and I didn't want it at that moment. Closed the drawer, and like a couple of days later, I was sort of craving a little bit of something, a little sweet, and my mind goes, oh, there's that piece of chocolate. Like it remembered days previously. So our brain is wired like that. So especially those sweet, sugary types of items, the brain will remember and it will remind you. So take care with that. But again, back to the point of thinking addition, not restriction. So, what I see is this cycle of like, as people create diets, for years and decades I'm talking about. So I'm not talking about like just in 1 year, but like over time, what happens is, you have a diet and you fail at it, right? Or you restrict something and then maybe you start gaining weight because whatever, right? You start cutting something out that's essential in the body's functioning. And as the body craves that nutrition or that nourishment, you overeat and compensate. Or maybe just you don't understand the energy input and calorie intake. And I'm not saying you have to be some scientist at this, because your body knows what it needs. It's just we cut that off, right? We override it, if you will. And then as we fail at this practice of this diet or this gimmick, or cut off a whole segment of food, we lose not only we gain that craving for these things, and that causes the binges, and then we feel like a failure, and then we blame ourselves, and we don't trust ourselves to know what to do, and then we become disillusioned. It's like, well, what works? I don't know what to do anymore, right? So we get into maybe a state of disillusionment, and then maybe we get into a place where we lose hope, right? And we just say, I'm not even sure what to do anymore. Maybe we even get into despair, like, I'm screwed. And then, maybe the floodgate of just all hell breaks loose. And then, the shame of all the overeating, it's just like, why not just do this, right? What happened for me was despair turned into resignation. And I just sort of started living like that. Living like, well, I'm just going to have these binge purge episodes. Pretty normal life, but having binge purge episodes a couple times a week. Just like, that was how life was going to be. But I'm here to remind you that it doesn't have to be. Because what happened for me when I reached the point of resignation is I had the opportunity to be reignited to the word, it's possible. And I actually saw an experience of possibility. So I want to be that for you. If you're sitting in a place where binge eating or bulimia is what you're struggling with, or you're suffering from this kind of endless cycle, you feel in a dilemma of not knowing how to do this anymore. Maybe there's just so many options. You don't even trust yourself. You don't trust your body. You don't trust yourself. The hell with willpower. Every night it's like, oh, I'll do it better tomorrow. And then you fail again. Well, I want you to know that that's the life that I had and I was living. And someone was my model, my image of what's possible, and they were able to change their behavior like that. And I was like, wow, if it's possible for them, it could be possible for me. And I started to think that, and I started to act like that, and then I started to believe that. I was like, you know what, maybe it's possible for me. And I just started telling myself that for a good couple of days, like, it's possible. You know what, if they can do that, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can do this. It's possible for me. And I started retraining myself, reconditioning myself with possibility. That was the first step. You know, and it's, once you believe that, what you have to remember is that actually addiction is kept in place by a false belief that you created. And I want you to know that you created it and you can change it. You can uncreate it. You can create a new belief. You can create a new possibility called I can be bulimia free. I can be binge free. I am a non-bulimic. I am a non-binger. Whatever that is for you. I'm a normal eater. Whatever sounds good for you. Start bringing in possibility again. Start bringing in, oh, maybe if I can do that. And start talking with yourself about this. Start adding in those foods that give your body the nourishment, so the craving, the inner, body needs something, warding off like a whole body of foods. Like, let that go. Like, why don't you try a new approach, which is I take care of me. Start being kinder to yourself. Number one, good self-talk. My body knows what it needs, and I'm listening to my body, right? And deeply owning that you created this, giving yourself back that power to uncreate it and create something else. Create a new possibility for yourself, one that's free of this, and a new life. So instead of restriction, think addition. Instead of it's impossible, I'm despair, I don't know what to do, think it's possible, I'll figure it out. It's possible, the way will be shown to me. If they can do it, I can do it. I have dozens of stories on my website, if you haven't been there yet, of women who have done this. I even have a recorded interview of a woman who, with 40 years of addiction, was able to turn it around. Turned her life around after 40 years and is living healthily now. She's choosing what she puts into her body. She's choosing to honor her body, and she's taken her power back because she recognized that it wasn't something out there. It wasn't food's problem. It was something that she was believing that was limiting her and restricting her. So I invite you, you think that you can't control yourself. You think that you're at the mercy of these foods. You think that you don't have the ability to overcome these urges or these ideas or these patterns of binging. But overcoming an addiction is not a process, it's an event. It happens in a moment. It's a shift of mindset, and then you follow it through with commitment in your body and your actions. But you have to begin to believe it. That's the first step. You have to think that it's possible. And I'm here to invite you and demonstrate for you that it is possible. After 20 years myself, stories I can share with you of 20, 30, 40 years, it's absolutely possible. So begin to believe and then begin to act on that. Start telling yourself that, the hypnosis that you've had over however many years or decades that you've been living like this, you've conditioned your mind, you've conditioned yourself kind of through a self-hypnosis that, this is just the way that it is, this is how I am, I can't do this, I'm weak-willed, I'm never going to get over this. And I'm encouraging you to turn that story around and start telling yourself an affirming story, an empowering story, and then live into that story. Enjoy. I welcome your feedback.